I'm Randy Reid, and we're here at LuxLive, and I'm joined by Mark Stokes of the British Transport Police. Mark, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, yesterday when I arrived at Gatwick, I took a train here, and I noticed on the platform I saw blue LED lights. What's that all about?
It comes from Japan. It's an idea that they've had on the Japanese railways, in particular on the Yamanote line in Tokyo, to prevent suicides. And the theory behind it is that blue light has a calming effect and is associated with the emergency services. So the idea is that it will have the effect of causing people to think again and not to try and take their own lives by throwing themselves in front of the train. The only problem is that the research to back this up is somewhat suspect, to put it mildly. It's more been used on the basis of hope rather than expectation, rather than any real evidence to support its effectiveness.
But I thought the study in Japan showed that suicide drops almost to zero where they implemented the blue light.
If you go, I was out there myself 6 weeks ago, and those stations on the Yamanote line that have got blue light, what they've also now got are physical platform barriers. Now, what that says to me is, if the blue light was effective, we'd have gone with it. And also, it's interesting that on the same platform, one line that's coming into that platform is on the Yamanote line, another line is on a different rail system, and guess what? The platform barriers are only on the one side, because these things cost a lot of money to invest in. If you come here to the Excel Centre, you'll know that the Jubilee line and its extensions have got platform barriers as well.
Interesting. How big a problem is this in the UK?
As a general rule, we deliberately don't talk about it. The reason being that as soon as you start to advertise the fact that you have an issue, you get copycat suicides. But to give you some idea, we have approximately 300 full suicides every year on the railway system in the United Kingdom. And again, my understanding that only on a pro rata basis, only Japan has a worse problem than we have. That said, our figures are down again this year. They came down by 10% last year, so there is a reduction.
And what do you attribute that to?
A lot of it is down to, I run a staff of 6 who cover Scotland, Wales, and most of England. My colleague runs a staff of another 9 covering London and the South East. And we call ourselves designing out crime officers. That's the national title.
What do you say?
Designing out crime officers.
I love it.
Now,
okay.
Suicide prevention, although suicide hasn't been a crime in England for over half a century and was never a crime in Scotland, for example, but we can put in measures which deny the opportunity, and that's the key word, is opportunity, because in the same way that if you remove the opportunity for crime, you can remove the opportunity for suicide as well.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about crime. What are some other things happening with your system with crime? On the great scheme of things, we don't have the same problems that, for example, what we call a home office force would have. So we don't, for example, we have no residential burglary, we have very little commercial burglary, very few robberies. Our highest crime areas tend to be offences like theft of pedicles, theft of passenger property on the trains, and some shoplifting from the retail premises at train stations. But obviously terrorism is on your watch.
It is indeed, and the two incidents that occurred during our general election campaign involved British Transport Police officers in the aftermath, both at London Bridge and at Manchester.
Okay. So you're here at LuxLive. What are you looking for?
I'm here to speak, and I'm trying to get the message across. What I'm really saying is that I'm a great supporter. I like lighting, and we know that lighting is a deterrent to criminal behaviour, more so, for example, than closed-circuit television. But what I would say is that it's not the magic bullet cure. And in the same way that 25 years ago, people in Great Britain and Northern Ireland thought that CCTV was going to be the magic bullet cure, neither is lighting. And examples like blue light, like pink light, which is meant to show up acne on teenage faces, and if you use it, that will stop them from congregating. Morally, very, very implausible in my view, but that's
never heard this.
No, that's another one. And
does that work?
No,
okay.
That's just. Okay. And the other one is that in the past, and it's starting to die out now, but they would use ultraviolet light in toilets.
And disinfectant?
This is to stop drug addiction or drug injection. The theory is that under ultraviolet light, the veins in the arm or any other part of the body will not show up.
However, what happens is the drug addict will simply mark the vein in advance with a marker pen, go inside, make it inject. And I've seen this used. It used to be used in London. I've seen it in the Blue Mountains in Australia as well, in New South Wales. So these things get older. They get a currency and they're copied around the world. And it takes some time before people say, well, actually, they don't work. That's the issue.
Well, I think your work is very fascinating, Mark, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.